In this video, in the Creativity in the Classroom series, I'm going to talk to you about the creativity art bias. What this is the unfortunate misconception that people have that creativity is contingent on art, skill, or talent. It's not. Creativity is not equated to how well someone can draw or produce a work of art. It's not. Stop. Just stop right now thinking that artistic people are creative and creative people are artistic. Just divorce these two completely. Creativity is a cognitive process. It has to do with your ideas. Now, the way that you apply those ideas, the context for which you use those ideas or need those ideas can be many different things. Sure, it can be a work of art. It can be a solution to a problem. It can be an idea for a new way to do something. There's many different ways that creativity can be manifested from an individual. Now, remembering that this is creativity in the classroom, we're not going to get into creative genius, big C versus little c, or the master works of creativity. That doesn't matter. You're in the classroom. What you need to do with this information is be very careful. If you have a child and they draw well, that's great, but don't label it as creative. Oh, wow, Susie, your drawing looks fantastic. You're so creative. I'm so proud of you. No, the drawing looks fantastic. And then be specific with your praise. I really appreciate the care that you gave to your drawing, or the craftsmanship, or the amount of detail you used. Those are specific things related to what she did. Now, if you want to compliment the creativity, look at the content of what she drew. If you asked her to draw something or imagine something in answer to an assignment, and you were encouraging your students to be creative, and her idea was creative, then acknowledge that. Acknowledge that the drawing and the idea separately. That idea is really interesting. It's very original. Tell me how you got to that. So you're encouraging and recognizing and validating the thought she put into the idea. Separately, you really paid a lot of attention to the detail. You're talking about the product. The reason that this is so important is because unintentionally, when you have a classroom, 25 kids, and you're walking back over to Susie and you're like, wow, look at how well you drew, that's so creative. Then you've got somebody in the other side of the classroom that heard that. They look at their own drawing and they're like, I suck. I can't draw a stick person. I'm not creative. I can't draw. I'm not creative. And they begin to internalize that, and they own it. And the more even though you've not gone over there and criticized their drawing, you might have even gone over there and said, oh, look, you're doing so great. I'm so proud of you, because you want to encourage all your students. But you didn't use the same language. They weren't creative. Susie was. And Susie was creative because she drew very well. Now what happens is this gets repeated and repeated and repeated throughout the school system, and then you have a whole population of adults who are like, I'm not creative, I can't do art. And this myth of creativity equaling artistic skill continues. It's a self-perpetuating disaster. So when you have your students, let's go back to the scenario I just gave you. I don't remember them. Let's say Susie and Johnny. Okay, you go back over to Johnny. I want you to look at it differently this time. Don't just look at how well he can or can't draw, but look at the idea that he's trying to put forth. His idea might even be more interesting than the first girl's idea. Recognize that idea. I like where you're going with your ideas here. Talk to them about their ideas. Encourage that. Recognize that as creative. and recognize it in terms of creative as being novel to that student. Hey, you started with this, and we're working it out, and now you've taken this idea further. That's fantastic. Okay, the idea. They heard they're creative. Now, your other students are becoming aware of the fact that it's what's up here that determines their creativity. It doesn't matter how well they paint. It doesn't matter how great their stuff looks out in the hall. When you teachers line all that stuff out in the hallway to show your students' work. And if you've done the thing where everybody's doing the same thing, which that's another video. I don't want you to do that, but probably do. Many people do. Anyway, you're looking at the ideas and not the artwork. This is very important because you're encouraging that student. You're allowing for the fact that ideas are separate than artistic skill, which means that all your students can develop their ideas. Maybe they can all develop their drawing. I'm not going to get into that. But it doesn't matter what their drawing looks like at that point in time, especially when you have younger children. You may have a child who's had more opportunities to draw. Maybe they do have some innate talent and their drawing is better. Don't label them as creative, and don't let the other students label them as creative. Make sure you're specific with what terminology you use. That's really important to developing confidence in ideas and encouraging students to continue putting forth those ideas, to take that risk and push it further, because if they learn to believe that they're not creative based on the fact of their drawing ability, then they will stop identifying as a creative person. And as that sinks further and further into their psyche, then they go through the rest of their K-12 years thinking, oh, I'm not that creative, of course, and they don't bother to try. And that starts very young. That starts with you first grade teachers, you second grade teachers. That's where it starts. But even if you're a teacher in middle school or high school, you can still do this. Regardless of what your students' experience has been in the past, you can start to reprogram their thinking so that they stop associating their capability for creative thinking with their drawing or artistic ability. So this is very important in supporting creativity in the classroom. Again, recognize it as a separate thing from their drawing and artistic ability. This is so important, and it will really free up your students. You will be surprised at how they become more open with their ideas. And I think it will make you a much better teacher when you stop just looking at the product. So, I'll see you in the next video. If you have questions or comments, please drop them below and I will be happy to talk to you. Thanks.